choices document is the government's strategic program review. They're going to be doing a meeting here next week. We wanted to let you know what they're going to be looking at, even as late as 10-15 minutes ago. I'm getting more information. So this is a process that is evolving, and the government really is going off in interesting directions, and we're just trying to keep track of them. I'd like to make note of a few people before we start. First off, we're very pleased to see the media coverage that we've gotten. I know CTV is here, CBC, the Courier, the Tide, Telegraph Journal's here. Did I miss anybody? CHCO. So that's very encouraging to see that they're coming to our little town. I'd also like to make note that this is not happening just here in Charlotte County. Right across the province, people are having concerns. There are problems right across the province, and we're going to be talking about that as well, because we have people from right across the province talking today. I'd also like to make mention of, we do have a few municipal politicians who came down today. John Courtmain, Mayor of St. Stephen, is here. I know Frank Carroll, Mayor of Macadam, is also here today. I know our former MLA, Tony Hutchins, is in the audience. Chris Austin from People Alliance is also here today, so we'd like to welcome those people. The meeting is going to hopefully wrap up around 3, I'm hoping. Let's see if we can move this along. We're going to keep our speeches kind of short, but we're going to give you as much information as we possibly can in that time frame. And this morning there was a piece in the Telegraph from talking with different people and some of their thoughts on this, including the MLA from our neighboring riding, Rick Doucette. And I'd like to just say to Mr. Rick Doucette, if he hears about this, yes, this is in our backyard, and yes, we are going to defend what we have and what we work for. The goal of this meeting is to educate, but we also want to learn. So at later on in the meeting, there will be questions from the floor, and you will be allowed to give remarks. We are recording the public comments. We're going to be writing them down. We're going to be presenting them to the government at their meeting next weekend. One way or the other, we're going to be there, and we're going to make sure they know what it is that you have had to say. When you get to the mic, please keep your comments in good taste and brief. And I think we're going to start off today's with the topic of education and Murray Stephenson.
Okay, can everybody hear me? My name is Murray Stephenson. I taught at St. Stephen High School from 1970 to 1998. And during that period, at various times, I taught math, computers, acted as a computer coordinator, the team leader for integration, distance education teacher, and vice principal in charge of scheduling. And at some point in time, I was quite a few of those all at the same time. This was at a time when integration was just being introduced into the high school. There were very few protocols or resources available, and we had a wide range of ability and behavior levels in our special education students. Some could not be placed in a regular classroom, even with a full-time education assistant, and had to be accommodated in other ways. The current government is suggesting that they can increase class size by 4 students and save $50 million per school year by reducing the number of teachers and education assistants. This is the interesting part. Whenever education is up for discussion, government speaks in numbers, and you hear terms like funding, class size, pupil-teacher ratios, salaries, etc. Here's the disconnect. Governments talk numbers, teachers and parents talk student needs and the reality of the classroom. So very often the government doesn't hear us and doesn't even know what we're talking about. Nowhere is this more evident than in the government's own reports. Oops, am I? This is the Engaged in Brunswick report, and here we have the Choices report. They're both on the internet, by the way, if you want to get copies of them. Say, nowhere is this more evident than in the government's own reports, the Engaged in Brunswick and the Choices document. The Engaged in Brunswick report was the result of public consultations held throughout the province in January, February, and March of 2015. Nowhere in this report can one find any suggestion of cutting teachers, EAs, or of increasing class size. It's not there. I hope you'll bear with me. I have a cold and I'm all doped up. And I've been in front of classes all my life, but you people are really intimidating. Mysteriously, all of these suggestions appear as options in the Choices report, which supposedly is based on public input. As a teacher and parent, I chose to look at the impact on students, teachers, and society if proposed cuts are implemented. Who is this going to affect, and how will the effect be? First of all, the student. In a 60-minute class, and by the way, I should tell you that I'm talking about this from the point of view of a high school teacher because that's where I spent my career. In a 60-minute class, allowing for 10 to 20 minutes to introduce the new lesson would leave less than 2 minutes per student for individual help. Where does the teacher find the time to work with the special ed or the gifted student? The educational assistant. These people are absolutely essential, even critical, to meeting student and classroom needs. It's the EA who provides the only support for the student and the teacher in the classroom. When once EAs worked with students who needed just a little academic help to be successful, today's EAs are assigned to students with behavioral or physical disabilities. The challenges are immense. The number and severity of mental, physical, and emotional problems have not decreased. And by the way, these people are still in the system, and if they cut EAs, who's going to work with these people? How can these people come to the school system? They can't. The system has a severe shortage of EAs now. Any further cuts to EA positions would be disastrous. The teacher. An increased workload for teachers. The teacher could have 4 special ed students with or without EAs, in addition to their 27 regular students. This would require 5 lesson plans. And since the high school teacher has 4 classes per day, this could mean up to 20 lesson plans a day, every day. In addition, the teacher must work with and supervise the work of the EAs. On top of this, there is testing, grading, writing reports, etc., as well as contacting and meeting with colleagues and parents. This is a formula for teacher burnout. Next, we look at the parent. Because of the larger class size and overabundant workload for the teacher, the student does not get the attention nor the help they need, and grades start dropping. Students are bored or lost and start acting out. Parents are frustrated because their child's achievement level has dropped and negative behavior has increased. And finally, the society. Because of all of the above the level of education suffers. Curriculum levels drop, and students are not prepared for post-secondary education or to compete on the world market. Another issue for students, teachers, and communities is the threat of school closures. In March 2015, the Minister of Education put a policy in place which states that any school with an enrollment of less than 100 or an occupancy rate of less than 30% is automatically targeted for possible closure. Presently, 28 to 30 schools find themselves in this situation, a number in our own district. This will mean longer bus rides and longer days for students. It also means that children as young as 5 are spending hours per day on a bus with 17 and 18-year-olds. We know that education is expensive, but it's also important. We see what happens in third world countries where education is not valued or supported. These people are not less smart nor less capable than us. Given a chance to get an education, they often excel. The government, however, has determined that they need to cut spending and save money. While we all applaud this, sacrificing the future of the next generation is not the way. Peter Fullerton, the former president of the NBTA, says that we're looking at an additional $111 million cut from the education budget, and says, I believe the education system is close to imploding. By the way, it's kind of interesting to note here, $111 million. That's just about the same price as what it's going to cost to build that new civic center in Moncton. I guess it shows you where their priorities are. I think I've lost my last page. Oh, there it is. Most important page. Duplication and the unnecessary implementing of duality would save much more and sacrifice nothing. A fair and equitable approach to educational resources across the province would also be a big step in the right direction. If you look at the table up on the screen, we have the 7 districts in New Brunswick, and we have their total enrollments, how many teachers are in each district, and the teacher-student ratio. Now this teacher-student ratio, if you look at the first one there, it's 1 to 14. You're probably sitting there thinking, hey, when I was at school, there were a lot more than 14 kids in my class. What's wrong with these teachers? Well, that's still true today. There's a lot more than 14 in the class. Because when they do these calculations, they count every teacher in the district, including principals, vice principals, resource room teachers, librarians, and all the teachers that work at district office. They're all added in there too. The teachers in the classroom see a lot more than 14 kids. But you'll notice that if you go down the list, they're all fairly consistent. However, compare the teacher-student ratio for Moncton and Dieppe. Okay, that's Anglophone East and Francophone South. Anglophone East, Moncton, has a student-teacher ratio of 1 in 6. Dieppe has a student-teacher ratio of 1 in 8. Now, if you add these two together, they have a combined student enrollment of 16,900 approximately. And they have 4,100 teachers. Okay, that represents 21% of the students with 52% of the teachers. The rest of the province has got to deal with 79% of the students and only 48% of the teachers. Now, you might think this is a mistake, but if you take a look, you'll notice that these are the home ridings of Honorable Brian Gallant, Honorable Roger Melanson, Honorable Chris Collins, Honorable Kathy Rogers, and Monique LeBlanc, all Liberals, 5 cabinet ministers. I guess they're saying, not in my backyard. Maybe when we go to that meeting next week, we should ask them for an explanation. As you can see, they're not here, and they don't come to any of our meetings. I guess you'll have to decide for yourself why that is. But anyhow, thank you very much for your patience.
Okay, thank you, Murray. Murray is one of our team, and he's been working very hard for the last year. And he is a former teacher, as he said, and the teachers in my crew give me the migraines. One thing I would like to just add to Murray's presentation is that I do notice that a former teacher of mine is in the audience today, and I did see mention of him in the news the other day because the school in his community, my alma mater, Academy Elementary School, is also up for closure. And Frank, I know that that's part of your jurisdiction, and I know that you're fighting very hard to save that school as well. So thank you. When I first got involved in this project, the reason why I did was because we heard rumors, thank you Bonnie Rogers, that the hospital was in danger, and what was I going to do about it? And my first question was, why should I? Well, it's like this. Because I've had a family member who was there, more than one. My mother spent 4 years there battling cancer. My stepmother spent 5 years there with kidney failure. I've never been a patient yet. My father, in the middle of all of this, decides to have a heart attack. Guess where he ends up? Charlotte County Hospital. Isn't that coincidental? So, I'm not the only person in this room that can say that we have either used Charlotte County Hospital, we have family members who have been in Charlotte County Hospital. Somehow or other, there's a connection to this hospital to just about everybody in this room, unless you're from away. And you're forgiven if you're from away because I know you have your own health issues. When the choices, or the strategic review program started, one of the things that they talked about was healthcare and how they were going to use healthcare to fix the problem. But let's go back a little ways. Let's go back to 2014. Let's go back to the Brunswick Liberal Party platform. In the platform, one of the things that they wanted to do was improve access to primary care by maximizing the use of health professionals such as nurse practitioners, advanced care paramedics, pharmacists, and midwives. Ensuring all professionals are functioning with full scope of training and practice will yield better results for New Brunswickers with vastly improved access to care. Back before that, we also had the Community Health Needs Assessment, which was done for all the different communities. This was put out by Horizon Health. This is a government agency. This is one of our health authorities here in the province. I'm not making this up. I don't have to. They can make it up for me. One of the things that they recommended was to enhance services offered by Charlotte County Hospital. That was one of the recommendations. Guess what? That's not where they want to go now with the choices document. By taking the hospital that we have, no renovations required, no additional staff required, nothing else. We're not going to be a burden on the healthcare system. We're not going to cost the government extra money. Use Charlotte County Hospital to the optimal level. There's departments there, there's facilities there, there's equipment there. Equipment that, by the way, I'm just going to say, a lot of people in this room have a lot to do with. You take the mammography machine that was put in last year, that was a major fundraiser. And a lot of people in this room contributed to that. A few years before that, there was a dialysis machine. And I know that a lot of people in this room contributed to that. We have the finest dialysis equipment in the province because of people in this room. We have the finest mammography machine in this province because of people in this room. You worked hard. It's yours. You bought it. You worked it. You shouldn't be at risk of losing it now. Moving ahead to the choices document. This is the document that they are, let me just go this way. No, wrong. There we go. This is the document that they're working on to give us the option of basically picking your own poison. And in this document, they are saying that the proposals include closing many rural hospitals either altogether or converting them into community health centers. They also include a realignment of services in the major urban hospitals. They include decreasing the number of access points to specialized health services by moving to single centers of excellence at one location in the province. For instance, New Brunswick could move to 6 full-service emergency rooms located in such a way that 90% of New Brunswickers are within 1 hour's drive of an emergency room. Other sites that remain will provide New Brunswickers with access to community care 12 or 16 hours per day. Is Charlotte County really within an hour's drive of St. John Hospital? No. We're not there. I don't live in town. I live out in the boonies. I am more than an hour away. It's going to take me 20 minutes just to get to St. Stephen. If something goes wrong, and normally it goes wrong at 1 o'clock in the morning, I'm not going to make it to a hospital that's an hour and a half away, that's already overcrowded. We need healthcare that is not just accessible, but affordable. Affordable and accessible. The plan is neither. Just before this meeting started, I was handed a press release. This is put out by the Executive Council Office. It was dated yesterday. In this document, it's talking about, among other things, healthcare. Complete closure of 6 to 10 hospitals. 6 to 10. Are we willing to gamble that ours won't be one of the 6 to 10? By the way, just for the record, this is the first time that I have ever said publicly that there is a possibility of closing our hospital. I know I've been accused of it. I I've talked of downsizing, but this is the first time I've ever used the word closure because it's the first time that the government has ever come to this point of saying it is a possibility. 6 to 10 hospitals could be closed just to save a few bucks. How many people is that going to put at risk? They are also talking about single high quality access points for particular services. They're going to create centers of excellence. So depending on what you have or what your family member has, you could be driving to St. John, for instance, for the heart unit. I can see that. Cancer could be moved to Moncton. Geriatrics could be moved to Fredericton. Where are you going to end up having to drive? Are you going to have to end up driving to Bathurst or Campbellton because your particular disease happens to be on the North Shore? How long does it take to go see a family member? We have a couple here in the room, and just yesterday I was given a letter from, I'm going to mess this up, David and Nancy Higgins. David recently had hip surgery. The service was not exactly wonderful at St. John Regional. Nancy had to run back and forth on a pretty regular basis to look after David. If we've got health care all moved to St. John, or more of it moved to St. John even, how often are you going to be able to get up and see your loved one? Are you going to be able to go daily? There's quite an expense in that. I mentioned before that there was a fundraiser a couple of years ago to raise money for a mammography machine. One of the things that they're looking at is optimizing hospital laboratories and medical imaging. A mammography machine qualifies as medical imaging. There's a possibility that they could be taking our mammography machine, and I will read. There would be a shift in the service delivery models for decommissioning of equipment as well as business process changes to improve exam appropriateness. My fear is, and what should be the fear of everybody in this room, is that the newest and the best mammography machine in the province right now sits less than a mile away, that way, at Charlotte County Hospital. Are they going to start transferring patients down here for mammography, or are they going to take the mammography machine to St. John to do the test up there because they want it more than we do? We need to protect what's in our backyard. There's a lot more to healthcare that I can say, a lot more. It is an issue that is near and dear to all of our hearts. It is a reason why I got involved in this fight, Bonnie notwithstanding, and there is a joke behind that. I know it is a reason why many of us got involved in this fight. We need to stand firm on this issue. We need to stand firm behind the hospital. We need to protect what the people in this town, in this community, in this county have worked for, have sacrificed for. Every year, for the last couple of years, there's 1 week in October, you people contribute $175,000 to healthcare in 1 week. There's a fundraiser that we do, and there's a fundraiser that the Tide does, and between the two of us, it's $175,000 a year. That's $7 for every person in this county, man, woman, and child, voluntarily taxing themselves for healthcare. Healthcare is important to us. Let's protect it. Thank you. One of the things that they're looking at doing is privatizing different segments of healthcare. and to not just healthcare, but also education and other areas that serve us, the public. At this time, I'd like to call Pat Colford. He is the president of the Brunswick Federation of Labor, to come forward and to talk on that very topic.
How's everyone doing? How's everyone doing? Okay, we'll try this one more time. How's everyone doing? Good. That's not what I want to hear, because I don't think you're very good down here in St. Stephen. I would almost assume that you're probably borderlining on, pardon my language, but pissed. So how's everyone doing? That's right. Well, I want to thank everyone who came out today, and I also want to thank the organizers for inviting me to come down. You know, I talked to a lot of people throughout the province on labor issues. I'm the president of the Federation of Labor, so I'm responsible for 40,000 unionized workers here in the province. So when actually Jean had contacted me to get a hold of Trudy to talk about this, you know, I jumped at the opportunity. I thought it was great. As most people know, or may not know, I'm from Miramichi, and we've had some problems up in Miramichi too, and quite frankly, I think we tackled them fairly well so far. But this fight is long from over. So anyways, I'm here today to talk about privatization. What it is, and why does it matter? With oil prices down, an aging population, and high unemployment, the New Brunswick government, the Liberal government, is looking for a silver bullet to cut costs for public services and infrastructure. And their sights are selling on privatization to be that silver bullet. So what is privatization? In its most narrow sense, privatization is the whole or partial sale of public services and or infrastructure. It can include sale of assets, like your mammography unit, functions, or entire institutions. With privatization, the service of the infrastructure becomes funded and or run by a private corporation. So privatization usually includes not only a change in ownership, but also a change in priorities, responsibilities, and the role of the province. So advocates for privatization, you know, they offer free market competition as a path to economic and social success, with promises of cost savings, lower risk, greater efficiency, and more individual choice. How often have you heard that? Privatization, every 4 years. You know, it's kind of funny because someone once said to me, they said, do you know what the first job of any politician is? Get reelected, you got it. So then someone turned around after that and they said, oh, I got politicians summed up pretty good. And I said, how so? They said, well, they spend about 4 weeks kissing your butt. Then they expect you to spend the next 4 kissing theirs.
That describes Doucette.
I don't think the people down here in St. Stephen's and surrounding area are going to have that, so that's good. So privatization, see, I get off topic, but nonetheless, privatization, it takes several forms here in Canada, and those can include full privatization, and that's where the government enterprise is sold in full to private investors. Publicly funded services and management delivered privately, and then sometimes unknown to the customer. Sometimes we hear this after the fact. You know, that these these crown corporations, I'll use Nova Scotia for example, they sold off their utility, their power utility. Some people knew it was coming. Some people didn't realize that it was no longer a public crown corporation until they had problems. And then the government said, well, guess what? That's not our problem. I'll have to call America. So, another form of privatization is the public funding of private services. So government provides vouchers to consumers for purchase of goods and services from a public provider. Or this is the one we know very well through the province, especially Miramichi, public-private partnerships, or P3s. So that's full outside contracting, management, and service delivery of traditionally delivered public services such as hospitals, roads, schools, and even prisons. Anybody ever jump on that nice new 4-lane highway going from St. John to Moncton? If you travel the old way, I thank you. If you travel the new way, that's a P3. If you jump on that highway that travels up Woodstock to Evanston, that's a P3. Now we can go one step further. That P3 highway was built by a company out of Quebec. So now even in Brunswick, companies got the contract for that. So this sometimes includes the private financing, the design, the building operations, and possible temporary ownership of any asset. That's what falls under P3. The easiest way for me to basically explain it is you need a couch. So you can go down to your local furniture store and you can buy yourself a couch. Or you can go to Rent Town or where have you and buy a couch. People know what Rent Town is? It's one of these places that's rent only. So you're going to pay for that couch probably 3 times over. And by the time you get that couch paid off, guess what? Time for a new couch. That's kind of how P3s work. So then the question becomes, can privatization deliver? After decades of experimentation with privatization in different forms across Canada, the data it's very clear. It's very clear on the failure to deliver on its promises and the high cost that society pays. Multiple costs. Not only in economic terms, but also in quality and access to services, quality and quantity of jobs, as well as transparency and accountability. I'm willing to bet there's some small business owners here. You probably, you struggle to get by, and quite frankly, it's nobody's business what your profit margins are. Well, you got big corporations that can then turn around and tell you that you're a private service, and quite frankly, they're going to make money off it. But that's a private corporation. You have no business knowing what they're making off you, off your loved ones. Here's where it gets a little depressing if it hasn't already got depressing. P3s are the fastest growing model of privatization in Canada. And the P3 models vary. All include a reliance on private sector borrowing to finance the development of public infrastructure programs and long-term lease agreements. So basically that comes back to the couch, buying the couch at a rental. It is effectively leasing rather than owning, and sometimes that lease includes maintenance as well. So then you turn around, build a nice brand new school here. And that's great. And SNC Lab, actually, we'll use Campbellton because Campbellton's got a brand new hospital up there. Beautiful hospital. I took a tour through it. It was built by SNC Lavalin. If anybody follows what SNC Lavalin does, not only in this country but in the world, I'm not sure if we really should have got into an agreement with them, but we did. It's beautiful, it really is. But at the old hospital, we have people that work there. That worked there for 10, 15, 20 years, maintenance. They were told in the early stages that your services will no longer be needed once we build a new hospital. So there was a big fight, big push back. So then it came and said, well, okay, don't worry about it. Your services may be needed, but you're going to work for us. So you no longer work for the province. And oh, by the way, now we're going to offer you a much lower wage to do the same work you were doing at the old hospital. Again, the arms went up, not a chance. So now they got it so that the maintenance people did come over, but there was one hell of a fight to get that. Something else already covered in the sense that P3s cost more. We know P3s cost more. Governments have always been able to borrow money more cheaply than any private corporation. If I go down to my local Royal Bank, credit union, wherever I choose to bank, I'm not going to get the same interest rate as the government of New Brunswick. We just know that.
You may
So,
soon.
you may soon? My God, I love the way you guys think. I'm hearing about negative interest rates now, so I'm all over that. But according to the University of Toronto study of 28 P3 projects in Ontario, P3s cost, on average, 16% more than traditional public contracts. And a recent Auditor General of Ontario report found that P3 projects cost the province an additional $8 billion with a B dollars more than if it was done under the traditional model. So the question then becomes, well, if they cost more, why do politicians promote them? Political expediency? And this has changed. This has actually changed the province of Brunswick, but from what I have here. But at one time, when the government entered into a P3 lease agreement, the debt stayed off the books or was postponed. And some of the people that were in the legislature and know politics a lot more than I do can probably tell me that has changed the province of Brunswick since. I know it's changed for municipalities, so I'm assuming if it's changed for municipalities, it must have changed for the province. But P3s, they do hide the debt. And quite frankly, it's a dream for politicians that are looking for easy wins in hard economic times. It's ideological, and it's about the private sector lobbying and influence. I keep coming back, SNC Lavalin. They're still in courts. They've done some pretty bad stuff throughout this world. So I'm not sure government should ever get into bed with these types of people. So public services are a boon to the private sector. Because quite frankly, any private sector that delivers, a service with guaranteed public payments and profit margins over the long term. If I'm an investor, I'd love to be running a company where the government's going to pay me and pay me probably tenfold. It's guaranteed money. I don't have to worry about anything. It's guaranteed. So supporters of privatization, they claim that it lends to better pricing for the public as consumers. So we've all heard that before. But a comparison of privately owned Manitoba Telecom Services, MTS, they privatized in 1997. We'll compare that to SaskTel. That's Saskatchewan's publicly owned telecommunications crown corporation. That shows that that's not true. Because 20 years after privatization of MTS, the cost of a basic phone with SaskTel is $8 less than MTS. And you're going to say, $8. I'm going to tell you right now, $8 is a hell of a lot better in my pocket than it is in someone else's. So. And private corporations demand a shroud of confidentiality in order to protect their competitive advantage. We hear it all the time. You know, there needs to be confidentiality agreements because my competition could very easily come in and scoop up a bid on me. So that means that privatization reduces transparency and accountability. And I'm going to give you an example of this. An example of this privatization is in Ontario's municipal water testing, which linked to the May 2000 bacteria contamination of municipal water in bonus points to anyone knows. Shout it out. Walkerton, Ontario. And that, anybody that's never heard tell of Walkerton, led to the death of at least 7 people and serious illness for 2,300 more from water contaminated with E. coli. The absence of criteria governing water testing and the lack of provisions made for notifications of results to the authorities contributing to the worst public health disaster involving municipal water in Canada's history. And this is the one that, and also anyone that doesn't know, I came out of the healthcare sector many years ago. I used to work at Mercy Hospital. So the healthcare sector, healthcare is the sector where there's a huge pressure on the government to control costs, and particularly in New Brunswick with the aging demographics. And private interests see great profit opportunities. But in healthcare for profit, it does not deliver. In Manitoba, living in a for-profit long-term care facility increases the odds of dying in a hospital or being hospitalized. In a meta-data analysis of hospitals in the U.S., Dr. Philip, let's see if I can get this right. I don't think I'm going to be able to. So let's just mumble over because I do that a lot. Dr. Philip Devereaux, a cardiologist at McMaster University, he concluded that the death rate in for-profit hospitals was 2% higher than in not-for-profit facilities. And there might be people in the audience that are saying, well, that's 2%. No, you know something? 2% might be your mother, might be your father, might be your child, might be your brother. 2% matters. And in Alberta, the Health Quality Council of Alberta's Long-Term Care Family Experience Survey, long enough title, that was done in 2012 and found on average that private and volunteer operating facilities offer poorer quality in terms of staffing levels, care of residents' belongings, and assistance with daily living activities such as, get this, toileting, drinking, and eating than in public operated ones. I don't know about you, but those are pretty much basics for me. Drink, eat, go to the washroom. And then we go back to Ontario, and I know we're drawn. This is like a cross-Canada tour, I know it is, but nonetheless, if it's happened there, it was as sure as hell can happen here. But the Scathing Ontario Auditor General's report indicates that there's a need to be extensive and comprehensive reviews of provincial privatization projects. And until proper cost-benefit analysis and public reviews and reform of the public funding and procurement models occur, governments and public bodies should place a moratorium on further public-private partnership contracts. So that's the Ontario Auditor General. The citizens, well, the citizens pay either way. Let's be honest. They're going to pay either way. They're either going to pay more in the private. They're either going to pay, in the public through your taxes and what have you, or they're going to pay, through the private model, also as taxpayers, but also now out of pocket. So the government has alternatives. And the New Brunswick Federation of Labor, we've published numerous reports and fact sheets on the progressive revenue options open to the provincial government. There's variety of progressive revenue options, also for some municipalities also. But the thing to remember, and to tie it all in, is there are no silver bullets. It's time to stop stigmatizing governments and public services and recognize them for truly what they are. Public services are a way that we pool our resources and we buy services cheaper, we control costs, we maintain accountability for quality. This should be debated based on evidence and not merely on ideology. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Colford.
Mr. Colford?
I've been
I
called
don't see Doug around here.
Okay, so we're gonna stay in the mirror machine now. Please don't blame me. This is not my fault. We, as I said at the start of this meeting, the problems that we're having here in New Brunswick or in Charlotte County are not local issues. Yes, we have our local concerns, but it's right across the province. Before we do that, there is one question I wanted to ask. You mentioned about the how it doesn't always go onto the government's books at the time.
That's correct.
I think that may have changed though. At one time, and the report that I was reading and studying, at one time it didn't go on the books. So governments were able to kind of hide it and kick the can down the road, if you will.
Mr. Coombs, do you know the answer to that question? Is that still happening?
Just avoids the capital cost. It doesn't go on the capital budget, it goes on the operating budget. That's the difference. You don't see a big number on the capital budget in the office. In the operating budget, you're out.
So they're just moving it from one pile to another?
That's right.
Okay.
It costs more money in the end.
Okay. By the way, we do have David Coombs, who is the leader of the Green Party, and a few months ago, we had the opportunity to go to Miramichi and meet with some of the people up there and some of the problems that they're having. And we are quite delighted today to have another Miramichier. In addition to Pat Colford, Allison is here, and he's been fighting very hard to save some of the infrastructure there and jobs there, particularly in Miramichi lumber. And so I'd like to have Mr. Allison, Aaron, come to the platform or the podium now and talk about what's going on your way.
Yeah, thanks a lot. You invited me. This is a nice crowd. God, I wish I could get one of these on the mirror machine. Yeah. You know, the funny thing is that we are in the same boat. Our hospital is now under attack. They want to take their trauma unit and they want to ship it to Bathurst. Bathurst is over an hour away. So, because we're in the middle, you can also go to Moncton, but Moncton's an hour and a half away. So, there's going to be a fight on the Miramichi Lake tomorrow, and like you guys, our MLAs never show up. They're hiding. And I hope they stay hidden. Our MLAs have talked about infrastructure and how it's, it's 6.5, 6.2. Funny thing is that yesterday the new stats came out, and it was actually 6.3. The new stats came out, and I've been talking about this, Chris, you know this for a while, that it's higher than what it says. The stats came out yesterday, 9.3 on the Miramichi. And Bill Brazier saying, no. It's only in the sixes. Bathurst is higher than us. Hamilton is higher than us. And we're getting up there. Right now, in the last year, we've lost well over 500 jobs, and it could grow up to 1,000. So, we've been fighting, Doug Mullen and I, Patrick Colford, Chris Austin's been there, David Coombs been up to help us out, which has been really appreciated. And with my group, we've come out to the conclusion that we need laws that protect people. And these laws to protect people was actually started, one of them was started by the People's Alliance. and it's MLA recall. If we had MLA recall right now in New Brunswick, they'd be gone, and the two up in my area, they would be gone. We need to end corporate capture. We need to get rid of corporate welfare. An article in the paper today. We've lost another 24 million bucks in corporate welfare. It's not working. But the PCs are bad as the liberals. I mean, you know, you got to give credit where credit's due. But we have been fighting for e-bears recycling. E-bears had 40 employees. They were top in their field. But it's funny because we have a middleman in New Brunswick, and they're called N-Corp. Now, N-Corp only answers to the government. And if we got rid of N-Corp right now in New Brunswick, we'd save about $15 million. 15 million. To take a line from Chris, if we got rid of duality, we'd save 40 to 60 million. Okay, but we don't have to take your cuts. I was talking to a young man a couple of weeks ago, and he's in MLA. And I said to him, his name's Jake Stewart. I bashed Jake for years. I mean, you guys know I bashed Jake good. So Jake said, Aaron, what do you think? I said, you know what? You guys promised to bring in a lobbyist registration. Why aren't you doing it? I said, Jake, we need that. That's to protect the people. Then we know what happened with Sean Graven and those Chinese investors going to Mac Dam. Well, we'll already know what's going on. Nothing's done behind closed doors, so we need it. Why not have it? So he said, well, I'll have to look into it. I will, you know, do some serious looking. An hour later, it was on Twitter. Yesterday, the PC official opposition has come out that they're going to support a lobbyist registration for New Brunswick again. It's really important. Like you guys were to be hitting schools. We've lost 87 teachers. We've lost 10 DOT. Membership Lumber right now doesn't know whether they're coming or going. There's no reason why this company has to sit. Bill Fraser, Lisa Harris, Glenn, they said, well, there's a lawsuit on. Well, the lawsuit was put in place August 1st, 2014, when the PC party was in. And I've talked to the PC party. They had no intentions of closing this company. None at all. You can't pay back what you owe the taxpayers if you don't let them work so they can pay it back. You know, so it got really interesting over the last couple of days. A gentleman by the name of Darcy McLaughlin, who was a reporter with 95.9 Sun FM. He did some digging, and I'm telling you, like, it's really, really interesting. Everybody on the member sheet thought that the government took the allocation away. Chris, I think you understood that way too. They didn't have no wood. We're fighting to get the wood back. According to Mr. Bellevaux, Mammoth Lumber continues to hold a permanent allocation of wood. However, when a company is idle for a period of time, it is common practice for the crown wood to be temporarily reassigned to other companies that can be used in the operational. Bellevaux said in an email, this happens to be the case in Mammoth this year, and about half of the wood allocation has typically been reassigned to 3 companies. The companies are Chaleur, Beldoon, and Delco, and Gauguin Lumber. You know, the funny thing is they had a fire last year, this time they had a fire, and the main line was burned, and they got an insurance check. The government commits that we're going to take your insurance check. You're not going to get up and running. Then they turn around and they kick them off the wood, off the ground land. So how do you expect them to pay back the money they owe if you won't give them a stick of wood? It's common sense, but unfortunately the liberals are in, they don't have any. You know? So we went to Bill Fraser and Lisa Harris, and it was an interesting situation. I was holding a town hall on a Saturday, so the Liberal parties decided to hold their town hall on the Thursday. And it was at Delphi. If anybody knows about Delphi, it blew up in their face. But I did have a chance to get up and speak. And Mr. Doucette's ears are probably still ringing because I let him have it. And Don Larson was there, and Dennis Landry was there, and I asked him, let's talk about ACON. You know, holy geez, afterwards, you shouldn't be talking about that stuff. I come from the mayor, I'll talk whatever the hell I want. So to make matters worse, you know, everything that I've talked about, if anybody's seen, I have New Brunswick political questions and polls on Facebook. I have ACON 6 on Facebook as well. So when we go into when Doug Mullen and I go into a town hall, we always make sure we got our back straight. So, I did a press release yesterday for our group. And the facts are is that Lisa won't stick up for the bill. She's got family that works there. She's got family that works there, won't stick up for the bill, you know. Come on. So anyway, so when Lisa was deputy mayor of the Miramichi, she made a motion which was unanimously approved by council representatives to have an emergency meeting with the government officials and local MLAs as soon as possible in order for us to work together to get a plan to keep the mill open and ensure the wood from the Crown land was divided fairly in accordance with the allocation Tara said. That was July 24th, 2013. Now my good friend, Bill Frazier, I love you, Bill. Bill says we have 110 people going home, not knowing where their next paycheck is going to come from. We need to find a solution to this now. We cannot afford to wait. That was July 22nd, 2013. You know the only thing he says about the mill now? I can't talk about it. There's a lawsuit on it. Well, the lawsuit was already in place when you took them out of the woods. The lawsuit was already in place when you took the insurance check. And you guys aren't that bright. You've been told 100 times. There's 2 lines at Miramichi Lumber. The main line burnt down, but they have the carriage line. And that carriage line can employ, well, they can have 2 shifts. That's 40 men. And in total, having cutters in the woods, that's 115 people. So why can't they have the wood? You're giving your wood, the wood to people and you're saying it's idle. So, you know, that's where we stand on that. And we're looking at holding another town hall to hold these people accountable. And I love the empty chairs. We started that. In the Miramichi, we started that. My last town hall, we had 4. Hell, even the Miramichi Chamber of Commerce won't show up. And there's a reason for it. Because the president of the Miramichi Chamber of Commerce is the former Liberal Riding Association president. You know, I couldn't even get Jerry Cormier's out on sick leave right now. He just had a heart attack. He's got chemo. He's got cancer. And John Ford wouldn't even show up to one of our town halls. Jerry's been a big supporter. You know, so it just keeps going on and on and on. They show a lack of respect. There's no integrity anymore. You know, they promise you the world, but they're long on promises and short on results. And we need to get this fixed. David has done a great job in the ledge, but I think the legislature in New Brunswick needs to be fixed. First of all, these are grown-ups. This is not romper room, this is not kindergarten. When somebody asks a legitimate question, the Speaker of the House has an obligation to make sure that that question is answered. And this is not happening. We need transparency laws. We need accountability laws. We need ethics. I said to somebody the other day, we need to bring antitrust and corruption laws into New Brunswick so that the people of New Brunswick can't be protected from the abuse of government. Because right now there's no accountability. The budget is coming out. If they didn't repeal the Taxpayer Protection Act, they would have had to hold a referendum. Which means that all of us, and in the Miramichi too, we get the vote whether you raise the HST. See, the Liberals don't like playing by the rules. And we're seeing that with ACON. You know, It's just going to get worse until we stop. We need people like Chris Austin in the legislature. We need David Cooley. We need more people like this because they can't be bought. Their word is their bond. But most of all, I look in this room. We're dads, we're mothers, we're grandfathers. It's my job to protect my babies. And I'm doing it. I'm a nobody. I'm standing up, I'm calling a spade a spade. If Fraser don't like it, piss off. You don't put food on my table. They're screwing our kids. They're screwing our grandchildren. They gotta leave. Why do they have to leave? Then we gotta hop in a plane to go see our babies. You know what? It's time that we send them packing, put them on a plane, send them to hell, and we bring our kids back. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aaron. By the way, when I met this man the first time a few months ago, he was just as vocal as he is now. He didn't disappoint me.
I'm politically correct and I don't want it.
The choices document has a number of things in it. I believe it was 22 different items to cut. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Tina.
To consider the options, 20 in the first category and 12 in the second category.
So we had 20 things that they're looking at possibly cutting, 12 to raise revenue, and they boiled that down to 6 in total, 2 cuts, education, healthcare, and then they want to raise a few things, and hopefully we'll get through our problem. But there's a lot of things that when we went through the paper, and like I said, we've been doing this for a bit, and we've been talking to a lot of people, and Trudy calls me up on a regular basis, and normally it's, did you know?
You get the same thing too, do you?
And right then, right there in the back of my neck, I get the pain, right? This is the woman who does that. But there's a lot of things that we're seeing that just are not part of the Choices program. One of the concerns we have is that next week, when they start that review process, are they going to be single-minded in this is what we're going to do because this is what we want to do, or are they going to listen to the public in looking at alternatives to what they're proposing? Some of the things that are not in the Choices document are quite interesting, and we have regular meetings, and I'm hearing at every meeting stuff that's just shocking me. And here to talk about that, what shocks me, is Trudy Higgins, my co-chair.
I've got a few things to tell you, but I want to add a couple of things first. I want to recognize David Kuhn and Chris Austin, and I want to make mention of them in the wonderful work that they've done on the CBC political discussion panels. There were lots of representations from the Conservatives as well, but these two gentlemen are here, and I don't see any of the other ones here, so I'm just saying that. Some people think I have a big mouth. And some people think that I say things I shouldn't say because my mouth is in gear before my head is. But I've never, ever been involved in anything like this until this last year and a half. I've done lots of talking, I've done lots of complaining, but I've never been involved. And in some ways, I'm glad I've gotten involved, but I'm like the rest of this committee. We've learned far too many things we wish we didn't know. But some of the things that I've learned are from Chris and David and some of the progressive conservative representatives. And when we leave here today, we hope that you will all feel like you're more empowered, and we're hoping that this is just going to be the beginning. So, anyway, what is not included in the choices document? Some of these figures, you know, we hear government throwing figures around, and I think everybody here has done it. They've thrown numbers and statistics, and you get kind of tired of it, but if you get involved in it like we have, that's all you read is these numbers, and some of them are shocking. So, for example, in the Telegraph on Friday, there was an article that states that New Brunswick wrote off, on average, $57 million annually since 2005. That's over $550 million of our money that they have written off, given to somebody that didn't pay their debt. In the last fiscal year, the government lost $22.3 million in defaulted loans. Now, it doesn't take a rocket science to realize that there's your solution right there. Just one. But anyway. So I want to go on and bring up AtCon, because I, for one, am shocked at what we've learned and what I expect we'll hear before it's all over with. But the AtCon is part of the spending spree. It was reported that Premier Graham and his cabinet, it totally ignored their recommendations of their own staff to stay away from loaning up that money. Premier Gallant has been reported as stating the Auditor General can investigate the AtCon issue, quote, all she wants, unquote, but he implies she's not going to get any extra money to do her investigation. Government must accept the responsibility and not impede her investigation. If there's charges to be laid, then let the responsibility go to the ones that should be held accountable. On December the 15th of this past year, on the CBC News, this is out of the Auditor General's report too, and this is one of the ones that I gave John the tick in his eye with, because it's stuck right here for me. Okay. The province is potentially losing millions of dollars to illegal VLTs. The Auditor General's report states that between 2002 and 2015, the Gaming Corporation has overpaid 7 First Nations by $14 million due to an error in calculations. Now, I don't know how many managers are here or how many business owners are here, but if you had an error in your calculations in 2000 and, what was it, 2? Would you let it keep on going for another 13 years and not fix it? The error was discovered, though, in 2013, and as of October 2015, it's still not corrected. Now that comes up to, are you ready, guys? $172,000 a month that we are continuing to pay as an error. Now, further to that, the Auditor General reports that there are over 300 unauthorized VLTs operating in New Brunswick, which is an indication of a significant potential loss of revenue that could be used in our schools and our hospitals. On the 24th of December, the Telegraph Journal reported that the Canadian Taxpayers Federation reported that in 2014, there were 2,200 plus government employees earning more than $100,000 annually. 2,200 making over $100,000. This is an increase of 52% since 2010. This is an increase of 1,400 employees since 2006. New Brunswick employs, or I want to say this, the population of New Brunswick is made up of 31% of us are employed with government. Compare that to the national average, which is 17%. So, personally, it may not seem like it, but I'm not on a vendetta towards government employees. Nor, I don't think any of our committee members are committed in that area. But if these positions are proven to be necessary, I suggest that even if government reduced the salaries of all these employees who earn over $100,000 by 5%, I think they could probably still make do and live on it without getting food stamps, and we could save one hell of a lot of money. Just taking into consideration these few items, there is a potential of millions of dollars of savings. With one final reference to the Auditor General, it is notable that she has expressed concern with the current accounting practices. The numbers in these financial statements may be misleading, she said, and this situation will continue until the accounting is changed or until accounting standards change, which is expected to take a number of years. So, on to another one of our pet peeves is the court debacle. Prior to the budget of last year, there was no notice given to any staff employed in the St. Stephen Court or anyone else in the town of St. Stephen or the area. We were shocked to learn of the closure of the court. The announcement was made because we have to save money. This committee worked very hard, collected all kinds of facts, not hints, not suppositions, but actual hardcore facts. The fact is that it is going to cost us $1 million plus a year because we have to move to St. John to go to court. It isn't just the criminals, as some of the politicians like to say. What the gentleman up in the Sussex area said, you do the crime, you pay the, whatever it was he said, time. It isn't that. It's the victims, it's the witnesses, it's the police, it's the lawyers. We're going to be paying that money. Recently, once we put this little issue out, the message came out that no. It wasn't because we were saving money. No, the reason why they're closing our court is because it's not safe. Now, I don't know how many of you know this, but there was new safety equipment in the basement of our court that sat there for 2 years. And they came and they took it out and they took it up to Carrick. Further to this, Minister Horseman stated that the decision was made. Now, you guys better know this. You're supposed to know this. The decision to close our court was made 10 years ago. Everybody knew it 10 years ago. Now, I just want to note that the issue of our court closure is now in the hands of the Court of Appeal. It is our hope that justice will prevail. Now, Premier Gallant has recently come out to say that some of the MLAs are tired. The ministers are tired. He's thinking about increasing the cabinet. I want to point out that increasing the cabinet is going to increase costs, expenses, ministers' salaries. Now, I'm honest, I'm trying to stay on topic here, but I asked a couple of ex-MLAs because I couldn't believe what I was reading. I had to check. For every cabinet position a minister holds, they get extra money. There are so many hidden benefits that ministers get. They get $46 a day without receipts. Now, I'm not disputing whether they should get paid to go to Fredericton, but they get $46 a day, I guess, no matter where you live in the province. So if you live in Fredericton, you still get whatever, $46 a day to go to work. And if they stay home in their own writing, they get $23 a day. Just want you to know that. Anyway, there's going to be a lot of extra expense. So here we are saying, we people in this room have to suck it up, tighten our belts, lose education opportunities, risk our health, so that we can give more money to an already astronomical government. So that's my rant. I'll get off my soapbox now a little. Excellent suggestions were voiced by participants during the first engagement tour. And they're absent from this options proposed by government in our final consideration. Some of them are elimination/moratorium on loans to businesses for expansions. Increased royalties from the sale of natural resources. Now, I have to say, I don't burn wood, so it took me a while for me to absorb this. But apparently, according to one of the people who is involved in the lumber industry, large timber companies currently purchase wood on Crown land at $3 a cord. Now, I don't know if anybody here burns wood, but apparently that's a pretty darn good deal. Freeze on all road construction and other major spending initiatives. Stop providing funds to corporate bailouts like AtCon.
Amen.
Address the cost of duality. Now, duality is a very sensitive issue, and I'm only talking about services. And if anybody is involved with health, I mean, well, I guess I should say I learned a lot. We have 22 departments in our government. We have 14 government organizations. I'm not really sure I know that there's a difference, but I don't know what it is exactly between a department and a government organization. But then again, there's also 9 more of them that are called other government organizations. So there are more of them than there are the departments. And in them is included things like the Anglophone and Francophone college departments, and Horizon Health and Vitality. There are 1,300 employees who receive between $75,000 and $100,000, just that one section, that work in those 4 departments. That's just a small sample of the staff and salaries included in these departments. And I'm going to say that I'm not sure about registered nurses, but I'm pretty sure that social workers and teachers are in that under the $75,000 or not much above $75,000. So we're looking at a lot of people that are not teaching kids, they're not providing medical care. There's a lot of them. One of the other suggestions was eliminate government borrowing for 1 year. Operate on available money only. Now that's a unique idea. If government would commit to adoption of some or all of these suggestions for even 1 year, we would realize a significant reduction in our debt. Now, we've all worked on our presentations for a long time, but I got up this morning and I was kind of wound up a little bit, and I thought I was missing something, so I wanted to finalize this one thing. I've been criticized a bit in the paper, in case you guys haven't noticed. So I just wanted to sort of pigeonhole some things that are my own personal concern. I work in home care, you know that. And in the late 80s, the government introduced regionalization. Regionalization was going to save the province so much money, and it was going to improve the services, and it was going to be fabulous. Okay, if you look at the statistics of the number of employees that the government now employs since the late 80s, you can see that there hasn't been any savings. All they've done is employ more people. And the services have been cut from places like St. Stephen. I love this town. I've lived here my whole life, and I'm proud of being a St. Stephener. And I think that we deserve to have the same services as people in St. John, Moncton, Fredericton. The fact that we have had 3 or 4 one-term governments is clear indication that people in this room and others are not happy. We have heard over and over again during our talks with people, what's the point? What's the point in having these meetings and trying to do something? We can't do anything. Well, I'm saying that we damn well can, and we need to. There's talk, and say this respectfully to Chris and David, but there's talk about get rid of the Liberals, get rid of the Conservatives, bring in the Green Party, bring in the People's Alliance. And I'm not saying that either of those parties would be awesome. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying and cautioning both of these gentlemen, it's not the party where the problem is. It's the system. And it has to change. Politics has got to be balanced. There has to be a strong voice of the people, sending a message to all politicians. And in a nutshell, this is how I feel. Enough is enough. Fix what's broken. Change what clearly doesn't work. And represent the people that put you in the first place. Yeah. We have handed out, or we hope to, we have some questions. We're calling it Keep the Conversation Going. As you know, next Saturday here, we're supposed to have another meeting with our MLAs. They're going to come to that one. And they're supposedly going to ask you for your opinions. So we have a piece of paper, and we've got some points on it. And we are asking you to consider those points, talk to your friends and neighbors, and come back and tell your MLAs how you feel. If you haven't gotten a copy of it, Chrissy's got some, and Sandy's got some, and if we run out, we'll get you some more. Just contact us. If you want to write letters, which most of us know that we're not getting responses from our letters anyway, but you could write a letter to any of the MLAs. Their addresses are on the back of the paper. And please don't go until you've had a chance to give your opinions. We are open to your opinions. We're recording them, and we're going to be sharing them. Does anybody have a comment or a question they want to put forward?
My name is Joanne Van Beek, and I work at the hospital. I'm a part-time employee. I can guarantee you I don't make near $75,000 a year. I register people for appointments in the clinics and for the emergency room. This week, yesterday morning, we were in overflow on the patient floors. That means that all the beds had patients in them, including the ones reserved for overflow. We had people in the CCU because there wasn't room on the floor. Now, I've been given the okay to give numbers by my Horizon manager in St. John, but I can't give you any other details. But I can always give you numbers. So I'm here for you because in December, when we had clinics, one day, with all the specialists that came from St. John, and we had physiotherapy, everything, oncology, everything except for the lab and x-ray, we registered over 100 people. If 100 people had to go to St. John for those appointments, Mr. Irving would have made a shitload of money on gas. St. John would have been overloaded, parking would have cost everyone a fortune, and if there'd been any accident on the highway, going or coming from those appointments, I think somebody would have been in for wrongful death, legal court battle. And that's my fear. By cutting the services at CCH, that we have to travel that highway in the bad weather. There's moose, there's deer. We're not getting any younger. We're going to be at risk. Anything that cuts back the services of this hospital puts the people in this area at risk.
Most of you know me. My name is Joe Moffat. I've been a private business owner in St. Stephen for a long time. I look around this room here and it's kind of appalling because the age limit, excuse me, but is probably about 40 to 45 to 50. I don't see the young people, and it's the young people who are doing not voting right now also. We have problems, we know that. I'm just going to give it real brief. Most of you know, I go out west to work now. I go 6 months at a time. I leave my family for 6 months. I did come home because I did want to see this meeting today. Okay? Last year I put 1,828 hours in 6 months. When I come back here, I do another 2,000 hours during the summer at my campground. So I think I have something to say. Last summer when I came home, I had a knee problem. I worked 4.5 months. I begged, I cried. I'm 51 years old, I had tears in my eyes, to fix my knee so I could go back to work. I do not want to be a burden on society. It took me 4.5 months. I've gone back out in the west at the end of September. I started to work again. My knee developed another problem. I figured I'd best go have it looked at. So I went into Alberta Healthcare. 2.5 hours my knee was fixed. Okay? They took off 22 milliliters of fluid off my knee. Did it in the outpatients. Simple solution. I told them to put a needle and leave it there, and I'll do it myself next time. Okay? From what I understand, there's almost 1,800 people in this province who need knee or hip, and they are on a waiting list up to 3 years. I also understand that the Charlotte County Hospital has a perfectly good operating room, not used. Perth Andover has a good operating room, not used. Why do we have to travel to Fredericton or St. John to use an operating room that's overloaded? That, for example, a knee operation took 15 minutes, 4.5 months to get to. Could have been done. Why can't they have their own team of people coming down using our operating room? That would fix a lot of problems, but it seems to be a problem. I've been reading about the school bus. Why is there a school bus that has to take 2 people from Harvey because they're French? I'm sorry, I'm being illegal. I'm trying not to be prejudiced. But when I went to school in Milltown, New Brunswick, I lived just over the mile limit. I walked to school.
Me too.
And I wasn't allowed to stay in the cafeteria at lunchtime because I lived over the limit. So I had to go home for lunch. Walked. I had to be back to school a certain time. Walked. I did because my parents worked. Okay? In this choices thing, there is a thing about road tolls. I, for one, don't really care if you put a road toll on. I'm sorry, but I don't. I like to have good roads to travel. But be damned if I'm paying $100 to travel across the province and I'm already paying for it. Put on $1 or $2 and make it fair and uniform. I'm sure nobody in here would argue. But what they're talking about for rates is outrageous. A trucker paying $75 or $80 to go from Edmonton to Moncton. Come on, guys, this is nuts. We already pay enough. Last week, my mother-in-law was in the hospital in St. John. She went in at 8 o'clock in the morning. They finally at midnight booked her in to stay the night. She's having some severe problems. There was a lady standing beside her, sitting beside her for hour after hour after hour, who was having a stroke. They could not put her in because they had no room. There was another fellow with a towel wrapped around his head who was bleeding to death. He sat there for hour after hour after hour. They had no room. So you tell me closing this is going to fix it? No. It's already overburdened up there too. And that lady just in front of me just made a perfectly good point. They'll make a fortune off of the what do you call that thing when you go in and you have to pay to park? Come on, this is ridiculous. We can't vote, we can't change, we can't do anything about our taxes. This is a real quick example, I'm sorry it won't take too long, but these are all little points that really hurt me. A couple of years ago, I owned a business. The government garage asked me if they could buy some trimmer line. $5.90. I gave them a 10% discount. So they got 56 cents off. When they came out and bought it, I forgot, whoever was working the counter, forgot to give them their 10%. They drive back to town. I get a phone call. You didn't give us our 10%. Ah, shoot, I'm sorry, I forgot. So they literally signed out another truck, another driver, to come back out to my shop to get another invoice to save 56 cents. Does this make any sense whatsoever? No. All right? So that was a pretty good example for you, but I do remember years ago, most of you know me, that I worked a little bit with the PC party here in St. Stephen and so on and so on. I did sit down with Mr. Allward one day and I really honestly gave him my point of view regarding the tenders. Why are we tendering out of province? Why the Grand Manan Ferry went to Florida, I believe. Look at the breakdowns. Look at the problems. Those poor people. There's just so many. There's one after another after another after another. I can't go to Quebec to work. I'm surprised they allow me to drive across the province. You know? But that's what it's getting to be. So we got to start protecting our province here. And in closing, I really appreciate the time. I know everybody's busy, but this is my town. I grew up in this town for 51 years. Yes, I'm going away to work right now, but there's no if, ands, or buts. I closed my store, I refuse to owe money, and I'm paying every penny. I'm honorable, and I will always stand up for that. And right now, I applaud you guys for doing what you're doing, to keep me in the loop on email.
Born and raised here. Very, very passionate about the province and about my local area. Pleased to work with Chris Austin with the People's Alliance. The reason I'm standing here today is because I want to reiterate what the previous two people have said, but put some more information in here for you. It's easy for, I've seen it sometimes said that we all have to take cuts. Why should it not be our hospital? Why not? You know, we can't say we don't lose things at our hospital, other hospitals have to. We all have to give and take. But what I want to tell you is when they take services, history has proven it, they save no money. When they regionalized and took a bunch of services out, they haven't saved money. When they close more services and options at Charlotte County Hospital or take the hospital out altogether, what it means is more people go by ambulance to the hospitals that are already overcrowded. In July and September, I had the misfortune of spending 2 weeks in St. John Regional Hospital in total, and there wasn't a day went by that the loudspeakers didn't blare out, ER at overcapacity, attention staff, ER is at overcapacity. Talk to some paramedics. You're going to hear stories of paramedics waiting in the hallways of St. John Regional Hospital, sometimes 7 paramedic teams deep. That's 14 paramedics, 7 stretchers, 7 trucks that can't go pick up anybody having an emergency because they can't offload their patients at St. John Regional Hospital because St. John Regional Hospital is already overcrowded. So we have ambulances out of service that can't respond to another emergency because they can't offload the patient they already have. If there's anything we have to fight, it's losing more services out of Charlotte County Hospital because we're going to pay for it literally with our lives. One other thing I wanted to make note of, a lot of you may not be aware, we are the only jurisdiction in North America, including Mexico, that does not have advanced care paramedics in our trucks. We have people who have taken the advanced care paramedicine. They're not allowed to use their skills in New Brunswick because New Brunswick has never regulated advanced care paramedics, and they certainly don't want to pay them an extra $2 an hour, or whatever the case may be. What an advanced care paramedic can do, the paramedics we have are great. They're called PCPs, primary care paramedics. That's the highest level they're allowed to operate at New Brunswick. Even if they have higher training, they can't use their higher training. We have many in the province who have the higher training, and what that higher training allows them to do is to give you access to 60 approximately drugs instead of 15 or 14. It allows them to do emergency interventions that our paramedics that are in the trucks now cannot do, more specialized training. So the farther you take people away from emergency care hospitals, the more we need our ACPs. They can give clot busters. A clot buster, if you have a stroke, has to be given within the first hour of having the stroke to be effective. If we're over an hour from an ER, and our paramedics aren't allowed to operate at that level and give those drugs, well, you're sweet out of luck, honey. If you are in an industrial accident, car accident, and you're alive and you're going to live, but you're in pain, our paramedics can't give you the pain medicine that everybody else in North America can have on site. They're going to have to set your leg with nothing. They're going to have to do whatever they have to do to move you off that wood pile, get you out of the wreck without even being able to help you with your pain, because we're the only jurisdiction in North America that won't allow ACPs to operate. We need ACPs. We need to clamor for that as well, because we are a rural province and we're not all 5 minutes from a hospital. We do have farms, we do have all of these things, and that's just another facet of the conversation that needs to take place. So I wanted to let you know that we're lacking here in New Brunswick on another front, and that's our emergency services out in the roads.
We've got an excellent Medicare plan. Well, what's the good of it if you ain't got no place to use it? A hospital in St. John or Moncton, there's no good to be in St. Stephen, not an emergency. My former wife that passed away in 2012, several times I had to call for an ambulance, and it was an emergency. We had to get her help now. She was my second wife, my first wife, which I lost in 2002. Several times, middle of the night, we had to call for an ambulance. She would have never made it to St. John. I mean, I'm just one person here, and I'm sure there's many stories of there's people.
I've worked a lot of years away from here, but it's always a good place to come back to and know that you have home. This is a sense of home for me. And if there's younger people that are struggling with that, they need to learn what their community's all about and be engaged with it. And I invite people to share their ways of how they engage with our community. Set that example. I mean, we don't need to give up on any of this. I think there's a lot of positive things that I know are happening. In my life, there was a time when I had to walk with a cane, and for 2 years now I don't. Now, I didn't get that solved through doctors. I didn't get that, some of it was. I didn't get that solved through social programs, some of it was. But a lot of it was a combination of everything. And I wrote a little song we read at Coffee House the other night, just the first little part of it. It's like, people keep saying, people keep praying, people keep staying around. People are bringing it down to too much is the cost, and all is lost. But hey, this is our town. You know, it is our town. Now, one thing I've seen happening, I've been living in St. John, and I've had some independent living, and it's helped me to do more things positively in my life and be productive in my life. I've been in the food service industry all my life. My dad ran a restaurant here, a Monmouth restaurant years ago. Half my relatives worked there. It was great fun. We all got by. Our family never went hungry. Those are the days, you'd say. Well, those still can be the days that people behave that way. And since I've been living in St. John, I've addressed problems that I had in my life, and I got help for them. Would have been the same if I was living here, but there weren't enough opportunities. I'm just saying that I learned I could do some programs like community food mentoring, and it's something that opened the door for me to understand about social entrepreneurism. When you see a need in society, you find a way to solve it. And how do you do it? Through your community. And maybe the non-for-profits aren't doing so great because the government ties your hands behind your back. You're always waiting for that Glory be budget to work out. And if your community invested business and enterprise, like, they don't even have a laundromat here in town. Can you imagine if you started a community laundromat here? How many people it would give something to do, a sense of well-being, a sense of worth, and make it easier for folks to live better. And if you don't be having food banks all the time and giving things away, but actually consulting with the people that are in need and engage folks that are in need to help solve their problems. They know best. The government is a name for all of us and what we're doing. And so we are all responsible, and I accept that responsibility. I know there's community food vendors in this town, and it goes another step. There's a wellness center. There's various groups. I've seen a lot of positive things for the youth. They have an activity center. There's a lot of things, volunteerism. There's a lot of things that folks could see we can do to help out and will improve people's health and well-being. Our hospital, what's going to happen? Like, I'm wondering, my big question that I'm asking is, what's it going to look like the very last day when our hospital closes? I mean, before we ever had a hospital, the folks around here, they built that building. They thought it up, they believed it, and they achieved it. And we're all community here, right? So if people engage in figuring out ways how we can do more to help each other and help our neighbors, that's what I believe will push this forward.
I think you just made the point that the hospital is something that we put here. It is a community, and we do need to protect it. Thank you.
Promise Grove.
Hi,
Yes, ma'am.
Trish Hopkins, born and bred St. Stephener, lived in the same home for 51 years. Very proud of that fact. I want to pick up on something what Joey said. We're not seeing a lot of youth at this meeting. I would suggest that for next weekend that maybe have the high school be approached. Maybe they have a junior achievement program or something that we can get some youth in here for the meeting. If we can show the province that our youth have needs too, that they're engaged, that they want to be part of the consultation, I think that would go a long way to showing that it's just not the same old people coming out to all the same old meetings. Right? So I would also like to pick up on what Kim was saying, and most of that is her enthusiasm for our community. In the last week or so, we've been in the media for all these new businesses that are starting up. There's hope in St. Stephen. We need to build on that hope. We need to make that systemic and across the board in our community. And we need to communicate that next weekend, that we are picking ourselves up by our bootstraps. We're taking advantage of, the Canadian dollar for what it's worth, what we're able to do. This civic center was a big movement for that. And if we can communicate the enthusiasm and the contagiousness of our volunteers and everything that we're doing in the community next weekend as opposed to the negativity, I think that would go further for engaging our politicians to want to work with us. That's not to say that everything, the information that we have today also has to be communicated. The numbers that we have are spectacular. What needs to be done is to have that flipped around, like that spreadsheet with the teachers, Well, that was a static information and you had to verbally explain it. We need to have that side by side, what it looks like now, what it could look like, and what it should look like. The cost for our courts, what it's costing now, and what it could look like and what it should look like. We need to have the hospital, exactly what Joyce was saying, the cost of us going to a healthcare center of excellence in Bathurst for whatever treatment. What's the cost to somebody from Campobello, from St. Stephen, from Macadam, Harvey, any of us? What does that cost look like? So that means that we're not spending money on groceries, that we're then going to have to go to more food bank for. We have to bring all of those aspects together. We can't just complain. We have to put up with solutions. We have to contrast them, and we have to do it in a positive way where they would like to engage with us as much as we really want to work and engage with them.
I've always learned over the years that you achieve things by management, by cooperation. Like the previous speaker said, I think we have to have more of that. And what I would suggest is that the municipal leaders in Charlotte County take up the leadership to take up issues that we've developed here today. I see that cohesiveness missing in what we're doing right now. And I plead for our municipal leaders to work together as one, representing Charlotte County on the issues that we have. Secondly, document the issues. And I think there was an excellent article in the paper this week in the St. Croix Courier about Frank Carroll's experience about documenting numbers. And last but not least, I'm deeply hurt and deeply disappointed that our local MLA is not here today. Even if he has a meeting, this issue is too important for him and others to be away. I felt this way, like Trudy Higgins. I've never been involved in issues as much as I am right now, and I'm concerned. But I'm concerned to the point right now of getting slapped in the face once too often by our local MLA, to a point where I would like to recommend a recall or an impeachment process.
Good afternoon. My name is Anthony Daigle. I'm 17 years old. I represent St. Stephen High School on many different occasions, nationally and provincially. The youth are educated on these issues, but here's the problem, especially in these conferences that I go to where you have members of parliament, people who hold positions that are there. They treat us like we're five, and let me give you an example. I attended the New Brunswick Student Leadership Association conference in Fredericton, at the Delta, Fredericton. The Minister of Education showed up. We had an hour with him, just the students who were student leaders and were sent there, and himself. Every question we asked, I can assure you, we didn't get an answer. The answer was somewheres along, I can't answer that, literally, which really slapped us in the face. And you know, they're the issues that are bringing up, that keep being brought up here. So I just want to tell you that although it doesn't seem like there are youth in this room at this meeting, we are really not here because we're already tired of being disappointed. So if you want a good youth turnout, you know, and because of the past things where we go and, you know, we think we have a voice and then we're humiliated by suggestions we get back like, oh, I can't answer that, or there's much more to that. I think that's why you're lacking the presence of youth, and especially in education. Our teachers, really, give it up for our teachers, because they're amazing. Just in our little rural school alone, we lost 32 courses, and there's upcoming cuts with more education. Education was never the problem to begin with until they amalgamated the districts. And I guess I'll wrap it up. The youth are educated on these issues, but we're so damn disappointed when the issues aren't being addressed, especially by our superiors who are older than us and who are supposed to have the answers for us and create a foundation for us to be able to be educated, and we're not getting that. So what do? We grow up too early, we don't get listened to, and that's why there's a lack of presence here today. Thank you.
There's 2 empty chairs at this table because they're not listening to us. So we hear what you're saying. We welcome your comments. You got the attention of this audience today. And next week, come back. We want to hear you and your friends and other young people saying the same thing. Send a message out there that this is what you feel, because you're the future.
I'm really encouraged by the work that this committee has done. You have to be commended for the work you put into this. So that's the first step. The second one is the gentleman that spoke from the Miramichi that was talking about downloading assets by the government so that it doesn't show up on the books. He was exactly right. He was not fooling you. That's exactly how the government operates. They download the cost of the assets this year by privatizing it, and it doesn't show up on the books, and they say, well, we're living within our budget. That's how they operate. The other thing is when Trudy speaks, you can count on her saying what she thinks. I was MLA for 11 years, and I know. And Trudy said to me at the beginning of the meeting, she said, I was never involved in this, and she said, I made life miserable for you, but I'm not doing that now. So I'm thankful for that, Trudy, that you're not making life miserable for me, but continue doing your good work. As far as politicians are concerned, I'm aghast that these politicians are not here. When I was in politics, I always made sure that if there was a public meeting, I would stand up and be present. I've had issues over the time. The issue of the hospital, for example, there was rumored that they were going to close it down. And I said, no, they're not going to close it down. But a political party at that time made sure that a demonstration was put in place to make me look foolish. For that reason, I invited the Premier to come down and told him, I need you to state as a fact that the hospital will not close down. And that is what happened. Premier Orr did come down and he made that statement. But that's what we need from these two gentlemen, is to stand up and be counted. Now, I'm not going to excuse politicians altogether, but I must say one thing. The system, and I think Trudy hinted at it, it is not the politicians that are necessarily wrong or at fault, but it is the system that is at fault. These politicians have been told by the civil servant what to say, how to say it, and what not to say. And that's why they don't answer questions when you ask them. Oh, don't say that because. I remember when I was Minister of Family Community Services and I was in the legislature. And I was, every other day or so, you were forced to answer questions. And one of the politicians from the opposition who was asking me questions, he said, my goodness, you're even answering the question. But that is how they operate. And it is a sham. It should not be. And I totally agree with the idea of having a recall system, that if a politician doesn't stand up for his community and voice their opinion, they should be recalled. They should not be allowed to stay in power. I guess I'll stop at that point, because I could go on for another hour and make everybody late. So thank you.
I just have a comment about possible hospital closure. I lived in Whitby, Ontario for a long time, and when the population was 25,000 people, the government built a hospital. Over the years, things started to happen that will sound familiar, like closing maternity, closing the children's ward, contracting out kitchen and laundry services. And then, after 25 years, when the population was over 100,000 people, the government decided that Whitby didn't need a general hospital anymore, transferred all the services to the hospital next door, which was already overcrowded, where I went for surgery, and right at the operating room door, they told me they couldn't do it because they had no beds. where my mother spent nights in emergency on narrow, hard cots because they didn't have beds. And all of this sounds familiar, and it looks like the same thing is happening here, so keep on fighting.
I'm David Kuhn. I just wanted to mention a couple of things. One was Trudy mentioned about the daily stipend for MLAs. You don't have to take it. I don't take it. It's human nature, of course. Many of us have had this experience where, you know, there's your expenses and you get to check off, this is what's available, but you don't have to take it. So you could ask MLAs, why are you taking this? And if you don't need it. I actually live in Fredericton, I don't need it. You know, I don't take it. So it's these are optional things which you can take or not take. There's this notion of leaving money on the table, you know, when there's an expense account. Well, if you don't spend the money, you shouldn't claim expenses. It doesn't make any sense. So just a little detail, but I think an important one. People can make that choice. You can go on the Legislative Assembly website and see the expenses for each MLA, and so you get a sense of how that all goes. But what I wanted to say was two things. One was, in terms of representation, one of the things I've discovered, having now spent a year in the legislature, is that there's a sense of MLAs and the other two parties feeling like they've got to be team players, and that if they stand up outside of their caucus in public for their community, then they will be not seen as a team player, and they will lose the regard of their colleagues and so on. This fundamentally is a problem in our system right now, and it's got to change, because that's why you voted them in. That's why I was voted in Fredericton, to go represent people in the community. And if you can't represent your people in the community, there's something fundamentally wrong. That's the culture that's developed. That the team that you're there to represent is your community. And yeah, you've been elected to the party. Yes. And while Chris Austin and I don't agree on a number of things, we're different parties, of course, and that's the great thing about democracy and ideas, approaches, and philosophies, and so on. But we do agree on a couple of things. And one is that MLAs should have the opportunity, in fact, the responsibility to represent their communities in the Legislative Assembly and outside of the Legislative Assembly. That's key to our democracy. And that they should be therefore, like in the Mother Parliament, where it all began for our style of democracy in England, frequently the members of Parliament there vote against the Prime Minister on matters that they feel are different than what's in the best interest of their community. It happens regularly. There's nothing in our system that prevents that. In fact, it's set up to do that, but it's shifted over time, and we've lost that. We need to get back to it. So that's I think an important thing, and I think you can, it's important to try and work with John to get him to see that it's really important to do that, to have the wherewithal and the support of you all to speak out, and you will stand behind him to speak on behalf of you. It's a powerful thing, and I had no idea the kind of power that exercised over the normally good, decent, thoughtful, passionate people to actually stand up and speak out on behalf of the people who sent them there. It's phenomenally powerful. It keeps them from speaking. That sense of needing to be a team player. So just remind him that he's supposed to be on your team. He needs to be for you. The other thing.
Do you think our hospitals can close there?
No. No, as many of you know, our family lived here for a couple of decades, and we still own our own property in Warwick, and we depend on that hospital a lot. We've all had experience. For the most part, it's gotten tremendous service, caring service, and good service at the hospital in Charlottetown. It should not close. Of course not. It doesn't make any sense. It's why we need to get our school districts back and our hospital networks, our health networks back to more local levels, so that Good. So the kind of compassion and empathy and thoughtfulness and just knowledge on the ground can be applied to decisions about how we run our affairs. And we've got to get back to that, be more local in decision making. Certainly there's things around administration that can be centralized for cost efficiency to save money and all that. In terms of decision making, we need to try and make sure it's as local as possible, whether it's our schools, whether it's our healthcare, our hospitals, or whether in fact it's how we develop our local economies and create jobs. We need to get to the place where our provincial government is seeing itself as an ally to our community. And until that happens, whether it's the Liberals or the Conservatives, we'll continue to see decisions that are made in opposition to the best interests of communities, not just here in St. Stephen and in Charlotte County, but around the province. Thanks very much. I really appreciate it.
I wanted to take the opportunity to say how absolutely moved I am today with what's going on here. I attend a lot of town hall meetings. I was with New Brunswick's own Donald Trump, Allison there, and Miramichi. And he gives it to the politicians. He doesn't care what stripe they are. Great group in Miramichi, but what you folks are doing here today is exactly what you need to do. I can't stress that enough. What's happened, Trudy said it and nailed it. This isn't about purple, green, red, blue, orange. It's not about political stripes. It's about fundamentally changing the system by which we are governed. And the only way we're going to do that is when you do things like this. When you stand up and say, enough is enough. We're tired of being overrun by party agendas and ideology that doesn't fit the wishes of the local constituents. So what you're doing today is awesome. Where did the young guy go? Mr. Daigle. You nailed it. You absolutely nailed what you said here today. And, with changing the system. The question that I was asking as I was listening, and honestly being moved by what I was hearing, how can government seriously ask the people of this area to give up their hospital when we continue to pay $40 to $60 million every single year to prop up two health authorities, a French and an English one? Seriously. How can government ask you people to give up your courthouse when at the same time they're allocating $50 million for a civic center in Moncton? Now what's more important, taking a swim in a pool or getting justice at your local courthouse? It's ridiculous. How can government continue to close rural schools, lay off teachers with an illiteracy rate right around 50%. How can they continue to close schools while we continue to have two buses going with French kids on one and an English kids on another one? If you cut that foolishness out, you'd save about $50, $60 million every single year. And I want to say something, and I want to be very clear, and I do my best to be very clear as I travel the province to get this message out. This isn't about a French-English issue. It really isn't. We believe we respect the rights of both linguistic groups. We understand that need is there, and we support that. But we cannot keep doing what we're doing with duality. Here next month, we're working with our legal team to fight on this dual busing issue in the courts, and we're going to fight it all the way. But I'm going to tell you, folks, we need your support to do it. We can't do it alone. We're limited resources as a new party, but we are going to fight with the best that we can to make sure this foolishness stops so that we can keep hospitals, we can keep courthouses for everybody, regardless which language you speak. Thank you very much. Keep up the good work.
I live in eastern Charlotte County and go right to the road, the county line, so Colford is included. And I'm very disappointed, as I said once before, that Rick Doucette is not here. Back on. He's not here. Where is he? He's not here. No. That money from back on. And in regards to what Chris had to say and some of the others, as once was said by Justin Trudeau when he was here a few years ago, not running as Prime Minister, but he made the comment was, build the schools. Why build a French school? Why build an English school? Build that school. The children will go to the schools, they'll learn to live with each other, they'll speak each other's languages, and now we are multicultural. Yes, start with the young people, let them go to school together.